Hey, how's it going, everybody? Back again at Hotline Sehwani. This time we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be starting a series on my channel focusing more along the lines of voice actors from video games, TV shows, and kind of focusing on how they got into the industry, so we can get to learn about them, some of their advice to you becoming a voice actor, and to learn a little bit more about your favorite characters. So today with me, I have Mike Pollock. Go and introduce yourself, Mike. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much. I'm Mike Pollock. There's a good chance you know me as the voice of Doctor Eggman from Sonic the Hedgehog.
How do you like
and also know me as, let's see, the Mayor and Kirby right back at you, Neat and Ultimate Muscle, the Garbage Man and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2003. You might also feel thrilled to know me as Greg from Ratatouille. That's okay too.
Lots of different roles that you've taken on, Mike, so throughout the years. So I'm sure in one way, shape, or form, you've definitely heard Mike's voice, whether it be from some of your favorite TV shows or your favorite games.
We can only hope.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mike, let's kind of, we'll kick off the interview. The goal of this, is just to kind of talk about you, your career, and we want to learn a little bit more about you and how did you get into voice acting overall?
Sure. Started as a kid. Obviously, most people start as kids in general, loving radio, loving theater. When voice acting became an option, I was able to perfectly combine my loves of theater and radio. So I spent a good 15, 20 years doing radio stuff, community theater on the side, getting all my acting training under my belt. And then when radio fell through, as it did for so many people, theater and voice acting were there to pick up the slack.
Did you pick more? Were you more inclined to do theater first, or did you kind of transition into both at the same time?
Well, you need acting training to be a voice actor because voice acting is a specialization, not a restriction. It is acting.
Sure.
So there were plenty of community acting things to do and school theater stuff to do, and that's where I learned my acting training. When I was in radio, I ended up using a lot of those same skills to be characters in commercials and stuff. And then the natural transition just to voice acting for games and animation and commercials and everything else.
Awesome. And when kind of getting into, acting and voice acting, did you have anyone that, inspired you to push to become a voice actor, or anyone look up to in that space?
Pretty much every cartoon I ever watched as a child. The greats like Mel Blanc from the Warner Brothers cartoons, the cast of Rocky and Bullwinkle, who I spoke with ever so briefly when I was a high school kid.
Wow.
But their performances were incredibly inspiring and made me laugh. And just anyone who does this for a living, I'm thrilled to watch and listen to other high quality, high talented people.
That's great. So you kind of, you've been inspired a little bit about everybody. So would you say from from a young age, high school, and that was something that you thought of wanting to do and achieving to be?
Inspiration is everywhere. As again, my love of radio and hearing all the wacky voices on radio commercials were like, oh yeah, I could do that. Now I can sometimes do.
So kind of take us back a little bit to your very first, what would you clarify as, your first real gig, like your major break into the space?
Well, let's see. When I was in radio, we did a thing where we would record commercials for other radio stations, which was considered a big deal because in addition to our regular salary, we would get a talent fee. So a bunch of my spots were on other radio stations in town. That was cool. Then eventually in radio, I was sent out to other studios to record stuff completely independently of work. That was also cool. But the first video thing, if you want to count it, you can go digging around on the internet. It's available at a very overpriced version called Tug's Big Adventure. It's a live action video of boats in New York Harbor, and I voiced all of the male boats and a few of the female boats, but I don't think they kept many of them.
Turn around. There's more work than before.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. And I know kind of around this time, this is when you started getting more into the for kids space, correct?
Mm-hmm. When radio was starting to disintegrate, I was able to put together a demo tape with all of my character work that I had done for the radio and ship that out to a couple of places, one of which was for NYAB Post, where I got a role in Demon Fighter Kocho, my first anime gig. And the next one was for 4Kids Productions, who at the time were doing Pokemon. So my first thing was a walk-on cameo character on Pokemon. And then when they started doing the 4Kids TV thing and Foxbox, they remembered me and said, "Come in for this stuff."
Cool. So that's around the time I know you were taking on more like the narrator role, right, for Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you kind of branched out into other TV shows on 4Kids. So, kind of, I guess, describe how along the lines, like, how did that work? Did you come in and they were like, today we're doing Pokemon, or were they like, today we're doing Pokemon, Kirby, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Like, how did that work for you?
All the actors, well, most of the actors at 4Kids, with the exception of a handful of those who were full-time employees, we were contractors. Actors are contractors in general. So we were hired by the hour when they needed us. So they would usually say, we need you for 2 hours on Tuesday, we're doing Kirby. We need you for 3 hours on Wednesday, we're doing Sonic. And I would just come in when they needed me, do whatever they had me do.
Cool. So it was very like dynamic in that sense. You kind of, going into it, you knew exactly like what you were going to do that day, and kind of get into the character naturally. And
tough to get bored because things were always quick and moving and over really fast.
Yeah, I bet. Especially when you have a lot of different roles going on. Mm-hmm. So naturally at 4Kids, that's when you were first exposed to the role of Dr. Eggman, Dr. Robotnik, and Sonic X, and that was a big stepping stone for you, because it shaped a lot of the stuff in your career moving forward. So how would you feel kind of stepping into the role of Eggman? How did you prepare, I guess, for it? Or did you look back on the previous voice actors at all to kind of develop a style for how you wanted to approach it?
They gave me clips of Deem Bristo to match. They were specifically looking for a Deem Bristo soundalike, so they gave me 20 or so clips. I took them home, listened, repeated, and went in and did my best Deem Bristo impression. They weren't convinced for that first audition, but they had 2 rounds of callbacks after that. And finally, after the 3rd time, then they decided, yeah, okay, you'll do.
Okay.
First, we have Sonic X, you'll notice, or a Deem Bristo soundalike, and then we eventually played with the voice and had some more peaks and valleys for comedy purposes.
Of course. So you can eventually kind of making it, your own, moving into it. So that kind of, that was answering my next question. I was kind of curious to see if you used him as an inspiration, kind of, build off of it. So that's interesting to know. And how would you feel, throughout the years? That's a good point. You're mentioning the comedy side of things, right? Of adding your own personality into the character. Mm-hmm. So how would you feel that, he's changed as a character throughout the years, just based off, the voice of him?
Sure. Sonic X started, they wanted him to be more villainous at first, but then they realized that they were going to start writing more comedy. So they gave me a reference of the Martin Short character, Jiminy Glick, who starts up way up high and then goes way down low. Put those peaks and valleys in. And then as the games became a little more comedic, with some notable exceptions, I was able to play the comedy. But when the script calls for villainy and evil, I play the evil and villainy.
Definitely. And I think one of the things, about the Sonic community is there's definitely a really big fan base around, Eggman. I think that's, specifically a lot to it is to your credit. So what would you say, really resonates well with people, and being the character? Like, what is that, that relationship click for people who fall off the character?
There are comedy fans, there are evil fans. So there are people who think that he's not evil enough, in which case, can't help you, that's what the scripts want. There are people who think he's not funny enough. Sorry, can't help you, that's what the scripts want. So you can't please everyone, but I would like to think that I please at least some of the people some of the time. So
absolutely.
Like comedy, there's some comedy for you. If you like evil, there's some evil for you.
Yeah. Oh, I feel the same way. I feel like, in the end of the day, I think everyone, mostly agrees that you've done a really great job with it. And there's you're right. There's the comedy fans, the horror, the villainous fans, and the evil ham fans. Mm-hmm. So there's a mix of everybody. So, kind of jumping back a little bit to, the Pokemon series. I know, your primary role was really, the narrator for some time. Mm-hmm. And then you left and there was a gap. Was there a reason you kind of stepped away for a little bit and then come back to the show, or was there like a licensing? Or
it started with the original guy. He left for a while, and then when 4Kids lost the license, he came back. So I was still doing other stuff. I was playing various bit parts before and bit parts after. So casting is casting.
Yeah,
other people are in charge and other people make the decisions.
Yep, exactly. That's how it goes, right? Mm-hmm. So how did it feel? I know in Pokemon, when you return, later in the series, you kind of came back as some side characters, like Sofu, for instance. So was that, I guess, more entertaining for you to work on versus the narrator, because you can kind of be like a solo character in that episode, or how was that transition for you?
I love working on anything, so the fact that anyone has called me in to do any work is a fantastic thing. But yeah, playing new characters, because I get to play around with character voices. But also being a narrator is a vitally important job too.
Yeah.
Often forgotten, but shouldn't be.
Of course. So when you kind of get called in, I figure I know the answer. It might vary, but how much creativity do you have with some of these characters? Like I feel like maybe with a character like Eggman, they might know exactly what they want, but if there's a character in an episode that's really there for that one episode, like where's your line of creativity to play around with the voice?
It's a very collaborative process, and the director and producer always have the final word. So I could do all sorts of wacky, crazy stuff. They don't have to use any of it if they don't want to. So we start by, if it's a new character, we'll start to find a voice. They'll play some samples of what they might want, or they'll describe what they want. I'll give them some examples out of my head, and eventually we'll figure out something and start recording. But they will let me play. I might ad-lib, but again, no guarantee of any ad-libs or anything being used. Once I leave the room, it's out of my hands.
Yep, that it's up to the editor's hands, right? So I know also that I was kind of just looking through some of your credits in IMDb to kind of get a bigger picture of your experience in Pokemon. I thought it was funny that you went from the narrator to some side characters, and you also did a Pokemon itself, right? Mm-hmm. So you voiced Shuckle in one of the episodes. So how was that as an experience? From going to narrating a story to being a character, and now kind of going back down to a Pokemon.
Well,
how was the direction for that?
The challenge of Pokemon being a Pokemon themselves is the lack of actual dialogue. You're saying your name or bits of your name in different ways. But I did the best I could, and the director seemed to like it, so I guess that worked.
So I'm just kind of trying. I thought that was funny. I was like, I wonder how that goes. Like you're like, Mike, say Shuckle this way, say it this way, go like higher, lower. So it's kind of like a collaborative process on that side.
Exactly as crazy as it sounds.
That's great. Have you voiced any other Pokemon besides Shuckle?
I was Valcanion in Valcanion and the Incredible Shrinking Woman. That's not a title.
Oh, really? Okay.
Incredible Metal Marvel Miracle Mile. Look it up. But I was Valcanion in that.
Awesome.
That was cool. And so that was the other notable Pokemon. He counts.
Yeah.
He has dialogue, so I don't know. He may not count as a Pokemon for some people.
Yeah, some words for you.
Yes.
Maybe they'll bring you back to voice everyone, all the Pokemon. That's funny. So it kind of, I thought that was kind of funny. I was looking at it, I was like, I wonder how that would go in a voice, in a casting. So kind of, going back to Sonic X for a little bit. A lesser known character you did on that show was Ella. Lesser known as far as from a fan reception. So how did that happen? And for people who don't know, Ella is the maid in Sonic X.
Fans are still discovering that little detail to this very day.
Yep.
I was in there recording Eggman, and the producer walked in and asked the director, who was directing me, have we cast anyone for Ella the Maid yet? And he said, no. Why don't you have Mike do it? Okay. He said, what do you want? Just do a maid voice? Okay. So I came up with the vaguely Latina-esque sounding Ella the Maid, which is somewhat up here. And I said, okay, great, thanks, we'll let you know. Came in the following week, I said, so whatever happened with that Ella the Maid thing? She said, oh, we got someone else to do it. All right. And then the week after, guess what? You're Ella the Maid. Okay. And there I was.
That's so funny.
Thank you.
So it did it. It almost started off as just like, hey, like Mike, did you think it was like almost like a joke at first?
Yeah,
like
I think aren't there more talented actual females that could do this? Well, yeah, but okay.
It's like you're already here,
That's the job.
You're already here, we're over budget.
We're gonna do tricks. I'll do tricks.
Exactly. That's really funny.
Thank you.
Was there ever I actually, after learning that, I actually went back and I was trying to pay specific attention to, if there was ever scenes where Ella and Eggman were like talking to each other.
Yep, they had a battle once.
Yeah.
He was in the X-Men tornado, and he was in the Eggmobile, and they were fighting. that was fun.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that go when you're reading some dialogue? Was it going back and forth, or just kind of reading all Eggman's lines at once and then reading her lines after the fact?
In that case, we did one character at a time. So I did, I think, all of Eggman, and then all of Eggman. Hi, Freudian slip. All of Ella, or the other way around. But yeah, we did those separately. So there have been other times where I've done battling characters in real time. Challenging, not impossible. Surprised I could do it.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I guess that brings up another good point, which is, maybe this is, a good segue to talk about, some little bit of advice for some voice actors too, kind of stepping up into the space. How is it, being a voice actor? Because I assume most of the time you're not really, you're not there with the other characters from the show that you're working with, right? So you're kind of filming on your own. So how is it in terms of like a scene, like not being able to play off of each other's lines?
Depending on the production, sometimes we're together, but more often than not, yes, I'm apart. And the trick is calling your acting training. Imagine what it would sound like if there was a conversation going on. What might the other person have sounded like? What are you going to sound like in response? And it's a tricky mental game, but the director's there to get everything together in his or her head and figure out, make sure that it's all going to sound right in the end. So yeah, it's just something I've gotten good at if I wasn't good at it in the first place.
Of course. And is there ever like an instance where, they'll say like, hey, we might need this line again, like this is actually what, this voice actor said, and this might not sound lined up properly. Has that happened as far as like in the voice acting space? Oh,
sure. In that case, there's the magic of 3 in a row. Give me the line 3 times, 3 different ways. Okay. And one of them's bound to work.
Exactly. So it saves everybody time, naturally.
You hope.
For sure. And then, I guess that's kind of a good point too. For somebody wanting to become a voice actor, and getting into that space, what would be something that you would recommend for them to kind of get into character? Naturally, we have that acting experience there that someone should have to really step into it. As you said, it's voice acting. But like, what would you say is like, hey, if I can give you one line of advice, if you can go back and give it to yourself?
Once you get into the booth, drop your inhibitions and leave them at the door. Don't be afraid to go crazy and make a fool out of yourself, because sometimes more is more. The director can always pull you back. Also, inspiration is all around you. Friends, relatives, people on TV, listen to voices, try and mimic them if you want, but even a bad impression becomes a new character.
Sure. That's good advice. Especially I think it's maybe, I figure that's kind of it to any profession really, where, sometimes you just got to do it and drop what you're afraid of and just jump to it if that's what you really want to do.
Lose your inhibitions, lose your fears.
Absolutely. So kind of going back to 2005 for you, that's when you had a couple of years experience as Eggman, and that was your first debut in Sonic video game. So how was that transition for you from going from the TV series to the video game? Did you feel as if like did you see that growth for you in that role, or was that like a moment where you're like, oh wow, this kid I could really kick off, and now I'm on the TV, now in the games? Or how did you feel about that?
I looked over the script and had to figure out how to play it. Can we still play for the comedy? Maybe not so much, but it was a great stretching of the wings to say, okay, he's definitely more evil here, so let's make him more evil. It was just making sure that I was giving the client what they wanted, which apparently I was, because they kept
you around. Exactly, right? So I know one thing that many fans kind of mentioned to this day is in that 2005 period, that's when a lot of the voice actors were replaced, and I know you're very notable, and a lot of speculation is about Deem Bristo passing away. So I know you were very notable about that's not the case in this situation. So you kind of want to touch base on that a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of people think it was cause and effect. I booked the role of Dr. Eggman in Sonic X in 2003. Deem Bristo passed away in 2005. We had already been recording 2 years of Sonic X, and then the games, because they just want consistency. They made a decision to go with New York actors, and they decided to keep those New York actors for the next 7 years.
Very nice. And actually, yeah, that's I think it's one of those things where people try to look for a reason that's like, oh, this happened, he passed, and sometimes it's a little more obvious. It's just, hey, the show was popular, it put Sonic in a different light, and they said, hey, maybe it would be a better move for our brand to align the TV show characters with the video game characters, moving forward.
Correlation, not causation.
Exactly. It's not always a game of 4D chess. So, another cool thing I wanted to kind of point out is just throughout your career, there's a lot of instances where you have, maybe like a one-off character in TV shows like Antihero and the Slayers. So how does that go in terms of, I know we spoke before a little bit about, hey, today you need to do this in Sonic X, or hey, today you need to do this in Kirby, or hey, today you need to do this in Pokemon. But how does that work when it's, you just coming in to do a singular role for that episode? Is it different?
I do that all the time. It's why I'm there. I'm a character actor. Hi, what do you need today? Okay, something like this? Great, let's do it.
Got it.
It's what I do. I'm chock full of characters, even characters I don't know I'm chock full of.
So it's as you said, it's a very collaborative process in that sense.
Sure.
Great. And then as far as I think Eggman goes, and the Pokemon narrator and whatnot, there's, as Eggman specifically, there wasn't a lot of voice acting before you. There was Team Bristo, and then there was some of the old 90s cartoons, and back in 2009, I know you did you voiced Beast in the X-Men movie, the TV miniseries, right? So how would you say it's different in terms of when you have like a small pool of information material to go off of hey, let me listen to Dean and let me see how he sounds, and versus like a very wide variety of a character like Beast, where he's in a bunch of comic books, a bunch of different versions of him. Like, how do you find your direction in that?
I've learned generally not to over prepare, and that came very early when we were doing Meat from Ultimate Muscle. Meat was originally played by a woman and had a high squeaky voice. When they adapted it for English, that's not what they wanted. They wanted a truck driver. So listening to the previous doesn't help me at all, because
sure,
they don't want me to sound like this. They wanted me to sound like that. So I rely on the client. They'll tell me whatever they want me to know. Here's a bunch of information, or here, go watch these videos, or here, go listen to this. But trying to over prepare and finding out that the client wants to do something completely differently, you end up working against the client. That's not good either.
Sure, that's a good point. Yeah. And then that's another another show we didn't get to to chat too much about, what was Meat and Ultimate. So how did, I guess, out of all your 4 kids shows, what would you say like you had the most fun working on experience wise?
I like voices that make me laugh. Meat made me laugh because he sounds like a New York truck driver, and the various spin-offs of the voice in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, where I was Bonaparte, which was the effeminate New York truck driver, I guess.
Yep.
And in Gogoriki, where I was the more educated New York truck driver in the form of Big Oriki. So yeah, that just this voice coming out of my mouth makes me laugh.
Is there instances where you read a line and you just crack up and you just have to do it again?
Always. But fortunately, we're not doing most of it live, so you don't hear all the edits they make.
Yeah.
Sound good.
That's funny. So, kind of going back a little bit, other than, we kind of talked a little bit about advice that you give somebody coming in to the career and actually in the booth. If somebody wanted to start but didn't know, what to do, what would be your 2 cents to say, hey, do this to try to get your first gig, or build your demo reel? What would be the best line forward for you then? If you can find an investor, or if you have some money saved up that you can invest, get yourself some good coaching. Coaching will point you in the right direction, answer all your questions, break you of any bad habits, give you some good new habits, then teach you what will help you make a demo, possibly for an extra charge, tell you what to do with that demo, and put you in touch with some agents and managers to get your foot in the door. If you want to do it yourself, there are some great websites. One of them is iwanttobea.voiceactor.com, which tells you all about the steps to take. And remember, there is more than just games and animation.
there's a lot of boring stuff that needs to be voiced. You've got to be ready to voice things that can't voice themselves. Even if you think they're boring and not sexy, sorry, people need them done, and they'll pay you big money to do it.
Sure. Like, the commercials, TV ads,
Sure.
radio spots. There's a lot of stuff that needs to get, wrapped up and done.
Sure.
Good point.
Don't get fixated on fame and fortune, because there's more to fame, and that's the fortune.
Yeah, most definitely. So I know the two biggest TV shows that you worked on, for Sonic was Sonic X and Sonic Boom, and both, as you said, they write Eggman very differently. So would you say you had a little more freedom in that show? Because that show, it seemed a lot more loose, that everyone kind of had a little more I guess fun with it in a sense.
It's an apples and oranges comparison because Sonic X was a dub, so we had to fit everything into the existing space of the Japanese dialogue. With Sonic Boom, we recorded ensemble style, and we recorded first. So we got to pace our own dialogue and let them edit it when we were done. So we were not constrained to, we have this many flaps to fit into this line. It was much more freeing and arguably more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I saw a lot of the. There was some behind the scene clips of like everybody, playing off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed that everyone, that was a lot better space because you can kind of hear everybody real time and working with each other and apply the characters and the voices as you go.
Absolutely.
So, one of the characters you also voiced that's was kind of like a hit in Sonic Boom was a Fastudious Beaver.
Yeah.
So, what's the story behind that? How did that come?
They've got to fill a community with all sorts of side characters, and one of them was Fastudious Beaver. They came to me and they said, "Can you do a droopy dog type character?" I said, "Well, yes, I can actually." So I did.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of and then they ran with it because there's a lot of really funny stuff with him in that show.
They knew what they wanted, and they agreed that I could give them what they wanted.
Is there any other little side characters that you did in Sonic Boom that you feel like people don't know about?
I was also the mayor of the town, who only had a name in the game, not in the series. But they gave me free reign, and when they said we need a voice for the mayor, I thought back to the 1970s in McDonald's and Mayor McCheese. Mayor McCheese used a voice similar to famous old-time radio comedian Ed Wynn. So that's what I did. And they said, yeah, okay, that works.
Very cool. And I guess that must be the best for you, right? When they're just like, hey, just do what you want here. Like have some fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And I'm definitely sure that helps like later in the career when you're, when you're very in 7 to 10 years into the character and it's like, hey, Mike is good. We can trust him with this.
Mm-hmm.
Let him do what he wants, and that's good.
It's very collaborative. It's listen and take direction, but also be able to listen and not take direction. Or that's a lie. Do what you want, but make sure that if they tell you not to do that, that you don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. have fun with it, but also collaborate with the clients. Mm-hmm. You got to make sure you get paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a question. Speaking of Fastudious Beaver, a question for him. What would he give as advice for becoming a voice actor?
Make sure that your diction is perfect and your words are always grammatically correct.
Very cool. Very cool. And I guess another kind of follow-up on that would be in Sonic Boom, as I said, you had that freedom. I think a lot of that show, in my personal opinion, Sonic Boom kind of has some of your best voice of Eggman because it shows a lot of his personality, coming out. So what would you say out of the episodes that you've done for the series, like what was the most fun you had in one of them as Eggman?
I like when Eggman gets to be out of character. He did a lot of singing of various kinds. Operatic / show tune / weird, and that was fun just to break character. And just when he gets to be a crotchety old man and complain about stuff. That's
yeah. So how would speaking of Eggman complaining, how would Eggman respond to Jim Carrey's portrayal of him in the
he's obviously very good or they wouldn't have cast him.
Well, hopefully he doesn't replace you, Mike, because you're the best.
Thank you. We can only hope.
Absolutely. So I know we're coming up on the 30-minute mark here, Mike. So is there anything you want to close with? Some advice for some voice actors? Any new projects you want to share and tell us a little bit about?
Sure. Let's see. We're getting really good buzz for Red Barber Shop on Netflix, where I play Director Popcorn and a bunch of other side characters. You don't think you're going to like it until you watch it and say, this is oddly addictive. So check out Red Barbershop. Also, recently in theaters, I was in Promare, which has been getting a lot of good buzz online, and Weathering with You, some big-time, more mainstream anime stuff. And you can find me on social media, Twitter at It's a Mike, Facebook at It's a Mike, but Twitter's better these days. And chime in. I'll answer brief questions almost anytime.
Absolutely. Yep. Mike is great. He's always super involved and engaged with the community, and that's why people love him, and he deserves all the praise and and devotion for him and his talent and his career.
Thanks.
So if you want to tune in with Mike, I'll make sure to put his website and his Twitter handle in the links in the description below. And thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the chat.
Hey, if you enjoyed my video, please consider subscribing to Hotline Sehwani as we race towards 3,000 subscribers. If you want to connect with me, please do so on Twitter at Hotline Sehwani or join our Discord community. Also, please make sure you follow the Hotline Sehwani SoundCloud to listen to all our remixes on the go. All the links are in the description below. Thanks for watching, and as always, I appreciate your continued support.